Brockway. Welcome, Cindy.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So glad to have you. So, as folks are tuning in and joining us, and technology has its way of making us wait a few seconds as we get started, as different things connect and get going, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Wanted to just go ahead and give folks some background about why we're doing these interviews. I like to kind of start there. So, here at Co-CreatED, we are working to be a resource of information for school leaders to have when they're thinking about professional development. So, we have a platform where school leaders can find lots of expert trainers, such as yourself, who offer trainings for teachers on just a wide variety of topics and subjects. And within that marketplace, we're also elevating teacher voice because that's such an important part of the professional development process. We want teachers giving ratings and reviews, giving feedback about the trainings they have so that we're actually listening to their firsthand experiences when it comes to training and development. And then beyond that, there's also a data dashboard section for schools where they can see across staff what the learning history is so that when they're booking trainings, they're actually booking them based on real learning data. So all of that is the information we're providing. These interviews are just another icing on the cake along those same lines. It's allowing principals to have an inside look at the work that you do, Cindy, and other guests that have been on this interview series to have just like that conversational human perspective on the services you provide. So I'm really excited to dig into that conversation today.
Yeah.
Yay! Awesome, awesome. Well, without further ado, Cindy, if you don't mind getting us started with just a quick intro, your name, your company, what it is that you do in a nutshell.
All right. In a nutshell, I am a courage coach, and my focus is on the essentials for peace and balance. And by that, I mean I specialize in simplified wholeness. Sometimes we think that being whole is is kind of way out there. But really, I just help people explore small little steps that lead them to life changing and even health altering perspectives. And we do it gently and gradually.
I love that. Whenever I hear you talk about your work, Cindy, it just gives me a sense of peace, gives me a sense of comfort. And I know that that's what you want for teachers. And I would love to hear more about your background and kind of what led you to be doing that work today, and especially your background when you were a teacher yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I am very blessed. I was in elementary education for over 30 years,
Wow.
and I specialized in working with children with varying exceptionalities. I was an exceptional needs specialist, and I loved working with children and their families who were differently able. That's kind of the label that I use when I work with my students and their caregivers and their service providers. My career in special education has been extremely productive. It's been fun, it's been challenging, it's been scary, and rewarding all at the same time. Just very dynamic. It kind of started to funnel down into looking what it looks like now back in September 2020. And that's when I ended my career with the Department of Public Instruction and started going virtual and doing my consultation online. There were some shifts in my life, just like everybody else. Things come up, and I had to take steps to kind of morph what I do and what I love as a teacher. And I turned it into a beautiful new entity as a career coach.
Yes. Yeah. So I can fully relate to that 2020 timeframe and having a big career pivot. That was around the same time at Co-CreatED that we made a big shift from back then. I was building my program. And then around that same time you're describing, we pivoted into the marketplace and the market network as it is now and being more of a connection point. And so I totally relate to that time being just this time period of shifts and necessary shifts. So I love that you were able to take all that you learned, all that you experienced, and channel that into a way to better support teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, with your background as a teacher, were there ever times looking back that you wish you had your own courage coach?
Oh, absolutely. And I think and that's kind of what I focus on,
Yeah.
is the areas where I felt that I probably needed support a long time ago.
Yes.
I specialize in just helping people who are compassionate, just like me, but they're very overloaded
Yeah.
and they don't know how to decompress effectively. And their overall wholeness, my overall wholeness, personally and professionally, um, became splintered. And so what I felt was missing in my own life is how to really cultivate a healthier relationship with myself and my career. And
Yes.
that's where I went to searching for things for myself and really, I think, digging deep in and doing that self inquiry into myself and what was driving me to be so performance driven, is what made the difference for me. And as a teacher, a lot of us are passionate about reflective teaching and observing what we do, evaluating the process, redesigning our approach, and then moving forward. And I came to this aha moment when I was in my 50s, which better late than never, I guess, where I realized that that same type of reflective learning is what was going to bring my health back and my wholeness.
Wow.
And so that's what I help others do.
Yes. So I love that word wholeness that you use, like our whole selves. When I was a school leader, that was something that was a hard lesson learned, but an important lesson learned. Similar to you, you're like, I was 50 when I learned this lesson. I was a school leader when I learned it. There's no such thing as it's just business, not personal. There's no such thing as that. Not when you're leading people. So we bring our whole selves to work. We are whole people. We don't separate at the door, right? And leave personal Jen at home and work Jen comes to work. That's not healthy. So I love that the work you're doing is helping people be more whole, and it starts with, like you're saying, like a reflective practice, an inward practice. And so in your work with teachers, can you explain to me a little more about this concept of a courage coach? Like, who could benefit from having one? And what does it look like to work with a courage coach?
All right. Well, a courage coach, in my opinion, is what I call myself.
I
It's
love
real. It's really just focusing on three concepts. And I dig very deeply into these three concepts. One is putting clear action steps for personal growth. That's self-expansion.
it.
And strengthening our faith. That was what I needed, and that's what I offer to my clients. We delve big time into self-reflection, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
and the purpose is for us to really evaluate where we're at, what's going on, is this where I want to be, and then redesigning how we look at things, our outlook on our life, on our job, on our faith, on our health. And then the third one is being able to hone in to our innate ability to courageously embark on a journey to new beginnings. So with that, we focus on deeper peace, on healing, on restoration, and building our confidence for ourselves.
That's right. And I'm hearing a lot too in that third one that's communicating to me self trust. When you say our innate, the things that are innate in us, it's oftentimes these answers are within us. And the work that you're doing helps bring that out and helps provide space for someone to look inward, to be reflective, to find answers within themselves, which builds self trust. And ultimately, that also relates to self efficacy, which is something we talk a lot about in education and in teaching. Is teachers deserve to have a sense of self efficacy to feel effective in their job. And part of that is upskilling on, these professional skills, but part of that is looking inward in yourself, having self-trust, wholeness, and the pieces that you're bringing to the table.
Yes, and I agree with you 100%. And that's why the program that I use is really built on the premise of personal accountability and that inner awareness and inner trust. Because
Yes.
that's true change comes from.
It
And
is.
that's something that I didn't focus on early enough in my career. I focused more on the outward. I'm doing things for kids, doing things for their parents, doing. And that's well and good. It's very commendable. But there comes a time when you have to turn your efforts in
That's
so that
right.
you continue to do what you do to support your people.
That's right. That's right. We educators tend to be givers, don't we? And we
Yeah.
give and we give, but at the same time, the old saying never becomes untrue. You can't pour from an empty cup. And we have to pour back into ourselves. We have to look within ourselves and replenish within ourselves in order to be the givers we want to be. And
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think the key is being able to find that path for you where your approach to life and your approach to educating is manageable and sustainable.
Yes.
And a lot of times we know in education and probably in other fields as well, what we are doing is not sustainable
Right.
personally. And,
Right.
it's just opening our eyes to
It is.
that and, becoming more aware.
Sure. And, this conversation would be remiss if we didn't talk about the environment we're teaching in, right? And it, like you said, it's not sustainable. And I know that obviously change is needed on a policy level, change is needed on a systems level. There's also things within our power and within ourselves we can be doing in the midst of all of that. So I often have to hold space for both in my mind, that like what is within my power, what is within my control, what is something that I can take on myself and grow in myself, and how can I be working towards systemic change or advocating for systemic change, because both can be true at the same time, right?
Yeah. And, I think that's the thing that keeps me stuck for a long time, and it does keep a lot of educators stuck, is feeling like there's nothing you can do.
Oh,
Uh, and there is, even if it is just small steps, just becoming cognizant of those differences you can make on a personal level that can really help you break free
right.
from this lifestyle that's kind of driven by stress and worry and resentment and perfectionism. Just imagine what it would feel like for us to actually break free of those experiences to a
Yeah.
degree and be able to release some of that negative self-talk and just unlock a more vibrant and personal self so
Yes.
that we can face that tough, challenging um, career that we have adopted, that we have chosen.
Right. Right. I want to shift along these same lines the focus onto our school leaders. And school leaders do have some amount of influence and impact over the school environment, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
ability to change those circumstances to make it more inhabitable for our teachers to do this amazing work they're called to do. And I want to talk about that using the word flourishing, which is a word I've heard you use in some of the materials you've put out. And can you just give us a definition? What is flourishing? And what can school leaders do to bring flourishing into the school environment so that teachers can flourish?
Right. It is recognizing that flourishing is not just about money and space.
Mm,
Uh, Flourishing includes, and administrators focus on this. Some of them do, but a lot of times we don't take the time. There are 6 domains to flourishing. Happiness, right there. That's first and foremost.
mm,
Mental and physical health. Having a meaning and purpose. Being able to value someone's character and their future, their virtue, having close relationships, social relationships that are rewarding. And then, of course, we've got that financial and more material stability. So that's in there. But that's only one piece of the puzzle when it comes to flourishing. And I feel like if people would be a little more aware of where their current level of flourishing is in each of these domains, then they can start constructing some patterns or proactive routines around some of the things where they want to build up their ability to reach their full potential. And it's not just about learning and new strategies and going forward. There's just a lot involved in it, as I mentioned, for the level of flourishing.
Right. Can you paint a picture for us of like, let's envision what a flourishing school environment would look and feel like?
Right. I would say a flourishing school environment is where everyone has a say.
Ooh,
Where,
yes.
yeah, where everyone has a say. That doesn't mean that we're going to make a difference. I mean, we are going to make a difference, but it doesn't mean that what we have to say is always going to be um, changing the system. But being able to share your thoughts, being able to be a part of that decision making,
Right.
feeling comfortable to be able to share where you feel, knowing what your purpose is in that environment, being made aware that what your purpose is valuable to us as a system, and just kind of padding those relationships that we have between educators, administration, parents, and students. You know, being able to work on the relationship component. You know, that's where I feel like we want to focus more is on our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others around. We don't often work on relationships.
Right.
Kind of thing is being comfortable in lots of settings.
That school you just described is like where I want to work. That just it sounds so beautiful, to be in a place where, if I'm a teacher in a school and I'm feeling heard, I'm feeling like what I have to say is valued. I'm feeling like the relationships I have with those leading me, with those I am leading, are strong and open two-way relationships where, even the financial piece where I'm paid well for the work that I'm doing, right? Every element you described of flourishing just sounds like the kind of school I want to work in. So, talk to me about how you help schools become that. Like, how, when you're working with a school, can you help them create that environment and support teachers better along the way?
Well, what I try to do is help people take time to rest,
Mm.
restore, and to learn.
Yes.
And the biggest thing that we want to focus on is learning how to manage our mindset and our mental health because that is really the bottom line when it comes to flourishing. And for us to be able to just reach and become cognizant of our differences and be respectful of our differences, but also being respectful of our limitations. Not expecting perfectionism, just expecting progress. And that's something I think we need to focus on ourselves individually and as a system. As a,
Right. I love that. Yeah. We can't do any of this work without proper rest and, refilling ourselves so that we can continue. I think that's a huge important component. So when you are, working with a school, if a school leader hires you, brings you in to work with teachers, what can that school leader expect about the nature of the workshops that you give and the coaching sessions you give with teachers? Talk to me a little bit about how you structure that work.
all right. That's a good question. The program that I use is really built around the premise of personal accountability, like I said, and inner awareness. So even though it's presented as a whole to educators, We do work on the fact that each of us are personally accountable for the whole. And my course is really designed to help educators and administrators really build an approach to life and their profession that is sustainable, like I said. And we utilize um, some reported exercises that have really been proven to help people become more friendly and cognizant of people's uniquenesses, our quirkiness, and to help us find a path that empowers us to break out of that lifestyle that's driven by stress. That's kind of the biggest thing I feel like, especially in the education field, is the stress that drives us as opposed to our well-being that drives. And that's what I focus on when I provide training and support for schools.
Yeah, I wrote down as you were talking so many like gems that came out of that. One, that each of us takes personal accountability for the whole. Like what a shift that would be alone, right? If each of us took personal accountability for the whole, like we see our place in it, we are accountable for our spot in it, and we care about the wholeness of the whole thing. Like what a beautiful shift that would be alone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the other piece is when we embrace people's uniqueness. And I think about how oftentimes we're focusing on helping teachers grow in their relationships with students or how they interact with students in the classroom. We don't often support teachers in the professional relationships with their teammates, right? You don't see that a lot in schools. And it's such an important relationship to be able to function on a team where you're expected to collaborate all the time and bring about these like gigantic gains and outcomes, and the stress is high. And I mean, we're all unique individuals plopped into this team to work together, and we got to just figure it out, right? And so I love you're focusing on that relationship piece and noticing that we all do bring our unique quirks to the workplace, and how do we navigate that, right? So do you have any tips for folks on these relationships at work and how they can flourish more in their workplace relationships with their colleagues?
Well, I would say that the relationship with yourself is very similar to the relationship with others.
Yeah.
Recognizing their need to restore and to manage their own mindset, their own health. Being able to bring some fun and some brightness into the environment because it is so heavy. Teachers are under heavy loads of work and responsibilities and accountability. And bringing in some of the fun and the brightness is going to provide relief. It's going to foster gratitude. And that's where I feel like that support, that one little shift on a regular basis, not just once a quarter when you try to have a morale lifting activity, but something that you do is built into your weekly routine and your connection with each other as professionals that is fun and bright.
We can't underestimate that piece, right? The levity that's going to balance out the seriousness and the heaviness. I love that. We got to have that balance, right? Fun matters.
Yeah, it certainly does.
So, if it's all right with you, just to dig in a little bit more into the nature of your professional development when you're working with a school, I'm wondering how, or actually, you know what? What's like an exercise that you do as part of your trainings that you feel that you've seen really resonate with teachers, and you've seen some aha moments go off, and you've seen some really big shifts happen? Can you tell me about like an example of an exercise y'all do?
Yeah, we focus a lot on connection inventory. So being able to connect with yourself in different ways. I have more than one that we work with, where we connect with our mind, we connect with our body, we connect with our relationships and our career. And there's certain exercises that help you take an inventory of yourself. It's not long, it's just a quick snapshot of where you're at and where you want to go. I also have activities that we utilize that are very concise and direct for the, I guess, the social emotional piece, where we provide them with mental download cards, with breathwork exercises, movement guides, things that are not the typical for the personal or professional development, but things that are very important to feeding and nurturing human beings in a professional setting.
Right. Thank you for that. It's the word that's coming to mind is experiential. Like working with you sounds like I'm experiencing these exercises, I'm doing these exercises, and I'm walking away with tools so that I can continue this work on my own.
Exactly. It's providing them with real, hands-on experiences, like you said, that are conducive to generating a spirit of calm, courage, and acceptance.
Yes. So, what would you say to a teacher who is reluctant to engage in this work? How do you bring that teacher with you to be open to doing this kind of work, especially if that teacher feels like, well, the system is broken, and that teacher's right, the system is broken? How do you bring that teacher along to be open to this work, even in the broken system?
Exactly. Because we take our focus off of the system and onto our students.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to flourish in a system that's broken? We do it all the time. We know that human beings are faulty, and so learning how to get um, your strength from within rather than from the system is going to make a big difference. And so someone who is kind of reluctant or resistant to change because they feel like, we've tried this, you haven't tried this. And it's like I get right back to those activities, those exercises that generate a spirit of calm and courage. And people want a quick fix. And unfortunately, there is no quick for it. It is just like with the system, just like with our students. Take time to move in the right direction. And that's what I encourage people when I'm trying to really help them buy into this idea of this, self-expansion coaching, courage coaching, being able to realize that it does start with you.
Right. And there's power in that, like I was hearing you talk about it, and it's, if we wait around for the system to change, we're giving away our power, right?
Oh,
Instead of looking within and thinking, what is within my power? What is something I can do about my own circumstance, about my own well-being, about my own satisfaction? And it's reminding me, I was at a talk recently, a guest speaker event I was at. The talk was about acceptance, and they asked us to name the thing we're letting go of, that we're trying to let go of. And mine is putting myself on fake timelines. Like, I just make up a timeline about how long something should take. And so hearing you remind me that there is no quick fix, that we have to be patient, trust the process, do the steps, do the things. It's the only way. The only way is through. There is no fast forward button, is there?
no, no. There's no fast forward button. There's no quick fix pill. It's all a matter of learning to utilize routines for you that are personally supportive, and that, take you into a space where you are more courageous and you're more self-sufficient.
Right, right. So I'm thinking about a statistic that you shared on social media recently that really stuck with me. And I'm not going to quote it word for word, but just referring to it. You mentioned that, is it school-based professionals, educators, teachers, school leaders are twice as, help me out with it. It was comparing people who are working in schools to the general workforce, and they are
Right.
as what?
Twice, twice as stress.
Ah,
Um, living under stress. And because of the heavy workload. And the thing is, with educators, I think, part of that was like in 2022 when I was reading through some of their stats for that time period.
Yeah.
Because we are just coming out of this massive pandemic issue.
Right.
And we are dealing with other people, not just bringing ourselves back to normal. We're trying to do the same thing with all of these children, with their families, things that were in a vacuum for a couple of years there with
Sure.
COVID. We are now tasked the responsibility to bring them out of all of it. It doesn't happen overnight, but yet we feel like to make that happen overnight. And it's just a lot of stress that the system is putting in to perform and to kind of fix everything, overnight. And that's just a big fallacy. And I think a lot of times in education, we're just thinking if we work harder and if we push harder, that we're going to get better results. And that is that's, that's a tough act to implement and to follow.
It is, for sure. And, that's such an important statistic to bring to light that, like, within our profession, we are experiencing stress at high levels, especially compared to other professions. And that's worth noting. It's validating. It's like, yes, we really are stressed. That is real. That is real, real, real. And it's being reported pretty widely. And you mentioned too that it's especially affecting people that are around the middle of their career. People of color and women are another group that are particularly experiencing stress. Is that correct? Oh, it froze for a second. Okay.
It's a sad dilemma, and people are. It seems like we're losing a little something.
I know it's trying to cut out on us. I'm hoping it'll hang in for one more second because I had one more thing to ask around this topic. Okay. Just hopefully this connection lasts for us. My last question about this was you shared these statistics, and why is it important for school leaders to pay attention to these statistics? Like, what's at stake if they don't?
Well, I think what's at stake if they don't, you can read about every single day in the news. Education is a high level of decompression right now. It feels like it's being recognized throughout the country. And being able to focus on the nuts and bolts, on the underpinnings, to build up and sustain people that are holding this whole thing afloat is where we're going to see a difference.
Yeah. So I would encourage school leaders to pay close attention to that statistic because it has to do with retention. If you want to keep teachers, you need to be paying attention to their stress levels and doing things about the working environment that are within your control to change, and doing things to give them tools and resources and support, such as the services that Cindy offers to help them navigate this very stressful environment. So, and you're right, Cindy, like, we're seeing the effects play out in the news every day. And so it's just really, I want to elevate the importance of stress is not a small thing, it's a big thing. And the more that we can help teachers, to use your word, decompress and navigate this, the better off we're all going to be. So as we start closing out, do you have any last words of advice for teachers about decompressing and caring for their mindsets in the midst of this stressful job?
Right. I think the biggest thing that I would say for educators is to just slow down, hone in on you and the next few moments. Try not to look at it as the whole, because the big whole is scary and overwhelming. So it's the small action steps that we can take day in and day out that are going to make a difference in our overall wholeness, in our health, and in our well-being, and our ability to continue to keep under such kind of oppressive situation.
Well, thank you for those closing words of advice and for all the other wisdom that you shared today. I loved hearing just a deeper explanation about the work that you do and the ways that you're serving teachers. And I'm just so grateful for this work. Really hoping that schools will get something out of this interview, which I'll be posting this video onto our Co-CreatED platform. It'll be on your company profile where folks can take a look and get an idea of your work in the future. Are there other places that people can find you and follow along with the work you're doing and stay connected?
Yeah, absolutely. They can definitely go to my profile. In there, I have attached links. I have a YouTube channel. I do curate a private Facebook community called Essentials for Peace and Balance,
Great.
and it's a good space. And so pretty much social media is where I'm at. Facebook predominantly, but same on Instagram. So yeah, definitely they can reach out and visit some of the new resources that I put in the resource and resource shop. I just I just put a new one in there in honor of our interview on the Flourish fundamentals. So they can go in there and access the information on how to join me for some free micro courses in flourishing.
Yes, awesome. I did not know you added that new resource. That's great. So we do have a free resource shelf at Co-CreatED, and providers like Cindy offer free tools for teachers to get, and you can download them there. So I'll push that out on social media too, that the resource you're talking about, to make sure folks can find it. So thank you so much for that freebie. Everybody loves a freebie. And
Yeah,
for being here today. I so appreciate it.
and thank you, Jen, for what you're doing as a company to be able to support educators, not only academically, but personally.
Thank you. We are whole people, right?
Yes, we are whole people.
I love it. Thank you so much, Cindy. I appreciate you saying that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.